This is the Spritz Girl Mindset Podcast, and I'm your host, Courtney Young. If girlhood is a mindset, this is where we practice it out loud and unfiltered. We're healing, we're yapping, and we're doing it with spritzes in hand. Here's your permission slip to be soft, messy, and magnetic as hell. So grab a spritz, grab a seat, no small talk, just the real stuff. And welcome to the Spritz Girl Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is Mary Houle, a Dallas-based business consultant with a powerhouse background in operations, pricing, budgeting, and business analysis. With deep roots in the fast-paced world of retail and a past life as a musician, Mary blends sharp strategy with creative soul. After earning her MBA, she turned her entrepreneurial spark into a mission, helping founders take ownership of their business and creativity with confidence and clarity. She's here to talk about turning passion into purpose, building something authentic, and why knowing every corner of your business matters. Also, she has 2 dogs, a horse, and a mean sourdough starter. We can't wait for you to get to know her better. Let's go. Hi, Mary. Welcome to the podcast.
Courtney, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited that we're on today, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited that you're here. I'm thrilled to have you. I would love if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and let us know a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my name is Mary Houle, and I currently live in Dallas. I am the dog mom of 2 crazy dogs, and then I also have a horse, so that's how I spend like a lot of my free time. My family is from here as well. I got my degree in music and business. It really set me up for success to have that creative aspect. I've been playing violin ever since I was 3. I was able to get a scholarship for orchestra, and it was an amazing time and experience. I started working full time after college, and I was able to get my MBA. So I was working full time. I was working at my corporate job where I'm a business and financial analysis, and I just wasn't really feeling the passion. In 2024, I decided I wanted to start my own company. It's called Belong Consulting. I really wanted to have a platform and a community where I can really help those creative-minded business owners. I wanted to have an environment where everyone felt very welcome. And so that's where the name Belong came from, because I didn't want to be stuffy. I didn't want people to feel embarrassed or put down or didn't feel comfortable with their financials. So that's what I'm building right now, and it's going well so far.
So awesome. So for people who don't know what business consulting is, because I'll be honest, it's not something I know a whole ton about. Can you explain to me a little bit about what you do and why it's impactful and important?
Yes. So a business consultant is basically your partner in crime or your friend when it comes to anything, whether it's from numbers, whether it's from taxes, or anything that you might need help on at a deeper level that you can't do yourself. You're able to really be a collaborator and a mentor to people who might need help in a specialized area.
I love that. That's awesome. I am somebody who sucks at math and hates doing taxes. So that sounds right up my alley. That's really, really neat. And you kind of touched on this a little bit. I love that you tied music into what you're doing and you have just this intense desire to be creative. I think that's incredible. To me, that sounds like you really have just this passion project kind of going on. So what was your first creative passion as a young girl? What kind of sparked your creativity?
I think it was really watching my sister and my dad. So they've always had music in my family. My dad would always play guitar and piano. And then one of my older sisters, she would always play violin. Since I'm the youngest, I wanted to copy everyone. My parents got me a little tiny violin. That's what started my creativity. I'm super lucky. My parents always encouraged us to explore music or art.
Amazing. I sing. I don't play any instruments, so I'm super jealous of anybody who can play an instrument, but it inherently requires so much diligence and discipline. So that's so awesome that you've kept up with it for so long. When did you start playing violin?
When I was 3.
Oh my gosh. When
I was really little.
Oh my goodness. That's so fun.
Yes.
So at what point in your life did you realize you had this calling or this desire to turn what you were doing into something bigger?
I think it really started after I was in my corporate role for a while. I really started to learn and think about what made me happy and what made me passionate, that was about like 6 years into my role. It really took a long time. I had to talk to a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds. I realized that my passion was helping people. Once I started tapping into that, floodgates were open. Like all these opportunities have been coming in of me just to like network with people or talk to them, or even like today talking with you, I tapped into my ability to connect with people and network.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like, we're going to kind of transition over into talking about burnout because I think that's something that's such a relevant struggle. We're designed for connection. We're designed
Mhm.
to get to know one another and connect with one another. And when we feel like we don't have that, particularly in like corporate setting, it can be so disheartening and so isolating. I don't know about you, but if I feel isolated and shut out from a central community, that triggers so much of my burnout because I don't feel like I have the space to bring myself to a conversation or to truly be a part of the things that I'm working towards or that I'm proud of or excited about. So can you talk about a time that you maybe faced burnout or self-doubt in this transition and like how did you care for yourself? Like tell me about that.
I definitely agree with you that burnout is real and people don't talk about it enough. And I'm so glad that you're building a platform for this. I have a perfect example because 2 weeks ago, I just started crying just for 2 days straight. I was just crying at work. I didn't know why. After I had time to self reflect, I was like, okay, I'm burned out because I'm not finding the value or finding the connection in my full time job. It's almost like I'm living a double life with my clients. They're giving me such motivation, they're giving me validation. But then because I'm shut off from that in most of my day, it really triggers that emotional response. My whole career has been remote work. I first started in my corporate role whenever COVID was first happening. That was really stressful. Like no one wanted to have like any sort of connection. Right now, everyone is remote and I am at my apartment all the time. So I have to find like little ways to make my day meaningful and have that connection. So I'll go on long walks with the dogs. I will do a workout in the middle of the day. I will listen to like an inspiring podcast or relaxing music because like you said, like if I don't have that connection, I will go stir crazy.
Yes.
And then all of like the emotion just like builds up and up in me. One day you just have like that volcano and all the emotion comes out and you're like, okay, I'm crying.
So much I want to say. This is like a soapbox topic of mine. We could talk about this alone for hours. So often, especially when you're in a role like that, where you're working from home, particularly in like a corporate setting, if we don't give ourselves the space to feel those feelings, if we don't create the time and the space to connect with others, those emotions are going to come out one way or another. And so crying is never a bad thing. It's so important to give yourself that space and that opportunity to release. And I'm so glad that you gave that for yourself. I wish I could just hug you. It's so hard. So isolated. And this is the other thing. Actually, the whole reason I started this podcast is because women in our 20s and 30s, ever since COVID, and I mean, I'm sure even before that, but particularly in the last 5 years, I've just noticed this trend where it is hard to make friends. We don't
It's hard.
do it. We don't know how to connect, particularly like I know Dallas like the back of my hand, just like I know Orlando, but that's a very transient place. People come, people go, they move, things change. The people, particularly in your 20s and 30s, you're not friends with the same people that you are year to year. It's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. And when you're working remotely like that too, you're by yourself all the time. And if we aren't actively seeking out that connection, it's not going to find us. Sometimes it gets so awkward or so uncomfortable, but it's like you just have to create moments and spaces for yourself. Go on your walks, hang out with your dogs, go to a dog park. I've met some of my very best friends, no joke, from going to the dog park.
Me too. Because
Yeah.
it's like the instant connection of just having a dog.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, hi, your dog's so cute. Yeah, it's so easy.
Yeah. That's what you have to do so that you can care for yourself. So that when you're releasing and you're letting go, and it's coming from a place of you giving yourself the space to feel your feelings, being in control of that, rather than coming from a space of being burnt out and exhausted. So I kind of transition to the next section of things I want to talk about. I want to ask, what does being a people person mean to you? What does that look like in your life? How does that show up in your role as a business consultant, in your everyday day-to-day life? What does that look like for you?
I think it shows up differently in business versus personal relationships, but the consistent thread that I like to share with people is just being able to meet people where they are.
Mm,
And from there, you'll be able to really build that authentic connection. Because if you don't have a great understanding of any relationship, whether it's personal, romantic, or business, then you won't know how to talk to someone and then relate.
yeah.
Sometimes I feel like people are more guarded, especially when their business is on the line or they're talking about money or they're going through a bad decision or they need help. So you really have to be engaged and be authentic so
Yes.
that they understand that you're a person as well and you're just trying to help. And
Yeah.
it's the same with like romantic relationships too, because you don't want to put on like a false pretense for your partner. You have to recognize that as a people person, you might have to have moments to recharge. So you really have to communicate and
Yeah.
then hold yourself accountable to being that authentic people person.
Yeah. Starting a business and money are two of the top biggest stressors.
It is like, especially nowadays, like money is one of the biggest stressors for people.
Just look at the world that we're in right now. It's always changing, it's always evolving. I think some of the biggest stressors the last time I did this research was money and job security, getting married, getting divorced, buying a house. These things, while some of them can be really exciting or really challenging, these are some of the biggest stressors in life. So you're really
Hmm.
getting to engage with people at their most vulnerable. I think sometimes when you're working with people, sometimes that vulnerability looks like their ego getting in the way or there being a lot of guardrails up. For you to be able to meet people where they are and sit with them in that, I think is so powerful. And it's a skill that not a lot of people have. How do you do that? How do you build real relationships with clients or collaborators, especially you're in a work from home job, you're by yourself on your own? What does that look like?
I think it's even harder being remote. You really have to put yourself out there and start the conversation and just find a way to connect. You have to be willing to invest the time and energy to pursue that person. Just like a relationship, if you really know that you want to go on a date with this person and you want a future with them, you're going to put aside the time, the money, the energy to invest in that person. I think the same relates to any type of relationship. So I just have to know being remote, I have to work probably 10 times harder because people are just seeing me on the screen versus me in person. They don't get the little ticks, the laughs, or, just your body language.
Yeah.
That's been a really hard thing to navigate for me personally is reading someone's body language across a Zoom
Mhm.
because I really don't know, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because I can't see you
Yeah.
in person. I can't see if your legs are crossed, if your arms are crossed. Are you smiling? Is the Zoom glitching?
Well, and it's always easier to hide behind a screen sometimes, right?
Yes.
There's almost like a way, like a wall that kind of keeps us from being able to be fully vulnerable. Like we can talk and we can share, but like something feels less intimidating or like I don't have to bring my full self to the conversation because I'm not sitting right across from you. You have to really cultivate that space and be intentional. Intention in everything you do and the way you show up and the way you talk to people is so important. And I feel like that makes all the difference.
I definitely agree, especially if you are pursuing that digital relationship over an in-person one. You have to craft your messaging
Yeah.
to be as personal and creative as possible because it's so easy for someone to just delete your message or block you or just ignore it. Maybe they have good intentions and they just forgot to get back to you. So I really do think that you have to frame and start your conversation like you would if you were in person,
Yeah.
but just add maybe a little more of a hook or some more creative spin to it.
Yeah, that's actually a great transition into the literal next question I was going to ask you is what advice would you give to women that are struggling to put themselves out there without losing their sense of self, right? So we want to talk about keeping authenticity at the center, being true to who you are. How do you market yourself, put yourself out there, connect with other people without losing that?
I think you just have to do a lot of self reflection
Mhm.
on you're presenting to other people. What are the good qualities that you want to invoke with the conversation? And it really took a long time for me. And I'm still working on this of doing that self reflection. But I think that's the best way that you can remain authentic and come across in the best way that you're trying to get your message to your client or even to a friend.
In this world, we have things like AI now. We have all this new
Mm-hmm.
technology that we're competing with. So it's not even just like you're competing against yourself or you're competing against other real people. Like we're competing with so many other forces in this world too. Like how do you fight that? What would you recommend to people about that?
I think the best way to fight any like artificial intelligence is to post as many like day in the life or real pictures of yourself
Mhm.
that aren't posed and they're not perfectly edited, because I think that's what people are going to be more attracted to, especially with the revolution of AI,
Yeah.
because it's really easy to tell if something is fake or edited. And so as much as you can present yourself in an unedited and real way.
Yeah.
And that means like showing your face when
Yes.
maybe your makeup or your hair isn't perfect.
Yeah.
But I think that will really help people engage meaningfully.
I'm realizing as I'm starting my own brand and my own business, it's not about showing up perfectly. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
striving for that perfection, you're going to miss the mark every time because it's not real. It's not authentic. People want perfection. Look at AI technology. That can
Right.
do whatever perfectly, and it'll give you that perfectly polished. People aren't looking for that. They want to know the real you. They want to see the messy. They want to see the ups and the downs. And Instagram and social media, that's a highlight reel. And the more that we challenge that and the more that we throw that idea away and say, no, like, you know what? Today wasn't my best day ever, but I'm still going to show up and I'm still going to be honest about that. And I'm going to talk about the journey because the journey is just as important as the destination. That's just as, if not more impactful. And more people will be wanting to connect with you if you can sit in that and talk about that and be honest about that. And I just really would love to stress that to people because it's so important.
Perfection is not sustainable either. If you're constantly chasing after what you're perceiving people think is your perfect self,
Yeah.
then you're going to be chasing a never ending road and never reaching goal. That's what's ultimately going to lead to you coming off as fake or experiencing the burnout because
Yeah.
chasing something that just will never.
I think so many times we let our own ego and our own voices get in our own way and get in our own head. I procrastinated starting this podcast for so long because I was like, well, I don't have a big following. Like, I don't know that anybody wants to hear what it is I have to say. Like, I'm just an ordinary girl. That reminded me of Hannah Montana, that I'm just an ordinary girl.
I was just thinking that.
I can't help myself. But I'm just an ordinary person who wants to hear what I have to say. That is your own ego protecting you and keeping you from reaching your full potential because you are not being honest about your own insecurities in that. And if I were to get really deep, really vulnerable, really quick and be honest about my insecurity, the thing I'm insecure about is what if what I have to say doesn't actually matter? What if it's not successful? What if people don't want to hear what I have to say? So not only is it, well, I don't know, they don't know who I am, but it's also, well, what if who I am isn't enough? And the more we can vocalize that and challenge that and fight that and put that into perspective, the more real and authentic that we are, the more we can actually connect with people, which is the whole point. The point isn't to produce the most amazing, incredible content. That content starts with you showing up as yourself and bringing your full self to the conversation.
Right. Just creating that routine and holding yourself accountable is going to, in the long term, be more sustainable than trying to achieve a perfect reality.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you, I have a lot of insecurities about what I put out in a video. Will it sound stupid? Will
Mhm.
people think, no, this isn't relevant to me? Why is this girl talking about business? She's not 50 years old. All of those doubts really creep into my mind sometimes. The system of getting education and being in a role for 20 years has really deterred a lot of people from starting their messaging and being really confident,
Yeah.
because you don't have to have like 20 years of experience to have a message and have a platform. And
Amen.
I think that would be so important for people to hear.
Yes.
Even if your hair isn't perfect, when I first started recording videos, I thought it was the stupidest thing. I thought I was so cringe. I was like, my hair is ugly. Like, this is awful. But then I just kept doing it and I didn't really care about how my hair looked, because the most important thing that I wanted to get across was my message.
Somebody's watching your video and their response is, oh, her hair looks weird. Like, they're not your audience. They're not for you. Like,
Right.
you can't be for everyone. You're an entree, not a buffet, baby. Like, we can't be for
Yes.
every person. So show up for the people you want to connect with. I love that you said that. I think that's so awesome.
The most important thing that you can do is at least try
Yeah.
and show up for yourself. And more often than not, the opportunity is going to be there. You just have to take the step to accept it and you have to be open to trying and starting. And you'll feel probably not confident, but the more you keep doing it, you'll just get in that routine and you'll start really flowing with ideas. It's like the same if you wanted to try a new workout class or if you want to go to the gym. You go in there, you feel awkward, you feel uncomfortable, but then the more that you keep showing up for yourself and at the physical place of the gym or even the recording studio or wherever, then you start to feel like that sense of belonging and acceptance for yourself.
I always say the first time we do anything, it's going to be clunky, right?
Mhm.
Well, the first time you tried to ride a bike, we
I
fall,
fell off.
we scrape our knees, we cry. But what do? You get back up on the bike and you try to ride the bike again. And if you
Yes.
didn't, you would never learn how to ride a bike. So absolutely. And I think that completely ties into what you're saying. You know, the first time you go to the gym, it's going to be awkward. The hardest part is starting. I'm a big gym girly. I love going to the gym, but I got burnt out and life got in the way. So I stopped. I realized that unless I was going to make the time to start going at 6:30 in the morning, I wasn't going to go. So I was like, I guess I'll go at 6:30 in the morning, even though at first I hated it with everything. Now I'm kind of loving it because it's a little quieter. When I get to the gym at like 8, it's great. But the hardest part is starting. It's so much easier to hit snooze on your alarm and go back to sleep.
You have to think too, do I really want what I'm trying to achieve? If the answer is no, then you're better off hitting snooze and trying to go to the gym at another time. But if you really want something, you're going to do anything that you can to achieve it. That is leaning into the embarrassment or leaning into the difficulty of waking up early at 6 a.m. Probably no one wants to do that, you know, but if you really do want to get better at like working out or building your business, you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. because you know that that's what you have to do.
Progress, not perfection. I love that. So, something I've always said is everyone has a story, your story matters, and you never know who you're going to impact by actually sharing it. So, when we're thinking about business and creative identity, that idea of authenticity is so important. So, how do you stay true to your story while still evolving professionally?
I think you just have to go back to what got you here. And I reference my family, I reference school for having the background of music because that's what makes me unique and that's what sets me apart. I realized whenever I was first starting in my corporate role, like in my early 20s, I felt the need to be from a finance major background or from a certain school. And then I realized that they have plenty of those. The reason why I'm here is because I went through my experiences. I went to the schooling that I did. Even if you are scaling your business or getting successful, like that's amazing, but you still have to remember the core values that make up your story.
Absolutely. How has your background in music kind of shaped the way that you show up as a mentor or an educator? I'm so fascinated by that.
I think really being willing to collaborate and be accepting of other people, other people's ideas because whenever you're in that music space, you might have people with different backgrounds or even different musical tastes or even totally different passions than yours. You, at the end of the day, will come together for like a joint venture, which is to create music to ultimately like make people happy or feel something.
That authenticity, that you being able to share that part of yourself, like that is what sets you apart. Right now in your business, what's a real example of a way you feel like you're showing up authentically for your clients and for people who don't know who you are? What does that look like?
So whenever I am showing up authentically for my clients, I really try to get a sense of who they are and then how I can best fit into their world or their business. With one of my current clients, she and her husband, they're very dynamic. They are business coaches and they have really powerful personalities. And I feel like it would be really easy to be working with them and cap to how they approach things or be like really loud or use certain words or, you know, dress how they dress just to feel accepted. But what I've noticed, and this is, I think, what sets me apart in business as a whole, is that I really lean into my soft skills.
Mm,
And what that means is listening
yes.
and just being a presence and maybe not speaking the loudest, but speaking meaningfully. I've really noticed that makes an impact because in that business coaching community that they have, a lot of people are very loud. They're very aggressive minded people, which is great because they're entrepreneurs, but not a lot are more soft spoken or they have just like a feminine presence. So that's what I've been bringing like that energy into their work.
Love that because so often we think that we have to be the loudest person in the room to make the biggest impact, and that's not true.
Oftentimes, like you're missing out on people's ideas because you're talking too much or you just want to talk.
I always talk about how it's so important when you're having a conversation with somebody to listen to understand rather than listening to respond. Because if you're
Mhm.
listening to respond or listening to come up with something to say, you're gonna miss what the actual point of what they're sharing is rather than listening to understand and have empathy and hold space. And that is what drives people to want to connect with you.
I definitely think so because you're not engaging with them in the same way that they would expect. I think that's what takes the moment for them to like pause and be like, okay, wait, Mary hasn't been yelling at me back like I'm normally used to. Wait, should I be listening to what she's saying? I've really noticed that makes an impact on people. If you are just really listening to understand, like you said, not trying to think 10 words ahead or cut people off, and really tapping into that feminine and empathy energy, because that's really missing in a lot of environments. And I think that is what people really need to connect with others in a really meaningful way. I feel like I'm more extroverted, like when I'm really comfortable with someone, being fun or goofy or silly. But then I realized that you can still have that executive presence and mindset without being super like bombastic or really loud. That's what I noticed about most of the people that I interact with, especially in business. That is like what connects people together and they want to listen to you because you have that strong sense of self and your presence is really inspiring to them.
Yeah, and I love what you said too about leaning in and doing the work. And we need more soft feminine voices. We need more active listeners. We need more people who are there to genuinely understand and to sit and just be with people. As a society, I don't know what has transitioned or what has switched, but we struggle to do that. And so many people struggle to just sit with somebody when they're going through something or genuinely listen. And I think that's a key part of what is missing in our need to build relationships. You can't connect with somebody and build a relationship with them if you can't sit with them and just hear them and receive them. So I think that's incredibly powerful and so important. So that's amazing. I love that you're implementing that into your business.
Thank you. And I really think that a big part of it is understanding someone's ego
Yes.
because Vial really talks about
I
this.
love Nick Vial.
I love him so much. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're a bachelor girl.
Yes, I love watching it and then like dissecting everything in the podcast. It's amazing.
Yes, listen to Vial Files all the time.
But he is one of the few people who really talks about ego and how it impacts you. And you can either have positive or negative ego, where it's either protecting you from something or it's preventing you from acting or maybe taking a risk. If you think for some reason that you are better than someone or that they're too good for you or whatever negative connotation that your mind might bring up,
Yeah.
you need to listen to that and then try to figure out how to redirect that ego into a positive.
Yes, yes. I love that. Yes, absolutely. So many times our egos get in our own way. And ego doesn't always mean you're like, we think about middle school or high school, like people who are so prideful and like put themselves on a pedestal. We don't realize that self-minimizing can be very egotistical. Us feeling this need to control is our ego getting in the way. We have to be able to sit and feel and release. The thing is, when you go through hard things, if you start complaining, if you start saying these untrue voices in your head, if you let your ego get in the way and talk about, I'm unlovable, nobody likes me, all of these things, and you use that as a protective coping mechanism, you're manifesting something negative into your own life.
anything that you are thinking, you are going to be acting out on it because your thoughts and your motivations are all driven by how you perceive your environment and then your self-talk. And if you're constantly being negative and all you want to do is complain, that's going to set you up for a situation where either no one wants to listen to you anymore and they feel like they can't help you, or people try to help you, but then your ego makes you selfish and then you think that no one understands you or no one can help you.
Yeah.
And it's a huge, huge driver of how people act and interact with others as well.
Absolutely. So when things do feel out of alignment for you, when we feel our ego getting in the way, what's a self-check practice or ritual that you have?
I usually have to go through the experience and have it be like a tough lesson before I can reflect on it. I try to really sit in silence and think about it either before I go to bed or throughout the day of how I could have done better or how I could have impacted the person that I was talking to or interacting with, because I never want to feel like I let someone down with my words or my misuse of words. It really takes a lot of self-reflection and just silence. And through that, just like the exercise of just even breathing and bringing blood flow to your brain, you are able to just sit in that moment and just think and set your intention. And it's powerful work. I feel like that's a release for me is tears.
Yes. Yeah. The way out is through. Every time you think of those negative things, there's no way to get around them. The only way to work through them is to give yourself the space to process them. This has been just the best conversation, Mary. I've had the best time just chatting with you. What is kind of your final word of encouragement to any listener who's dreaming of turning their creativity into something more?
I think just try and just start. And that was the biggest roadblock for me. And I know like probably for you too, is just even showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And no matter what you think people's reactions are going to be, or even your reaction to yourself, just give yourself the grace and the time to just do a video or put your music out there or put your art out there. And you'd be really surprised about the response that you're going to get for yourself and then how other people are going to positively respond to you.
I love that. Thank you so, so much for sharing with us today and for being here. How can my audience support you, follow you? What do you have for us?
Of course. So I have my website, which is www.belongconsultingllc.com. And then that's the same for my Instagram handle. It's just at Belong Consulting LLC.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really loved getting to know you, and I'm so excited to see how impactful your work continues to be.
I'm so excited, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be on the podcast. It really just made my Monday, and I had the best time chatting with you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. New bestie for life, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. I love it.
I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining.